The last part of task list, item 5, is A-5, identify and describe dimensions of applied behavior analysis. This is the 7 dimensions of applied behavior analysis, and there's a lot of different ways to remember this. Some people remember it as bat cage. Some people remember it as get a cab. Some people remember it as act your age B. I'm just gonna do get a cab. That's the way I remember it the best. So I'm gonna try to start writing these out as we go. Okay. The G in get a cab stands for generality. The target behavior should change not only in the learning environment, but also outside of the learning environment as well. So this skill should persist across environments, people, and time. The way I remember generality is just generalization. We talk about generalization a lot at work. The E in get a cab is going to be effective. There must be a significant and socially important level of change to the behavior. There's another one in these dimensions that sounds very similar to this one. It's applied. We'll talk about it after the T. So I'm going to break down in more detail how to differentiate between applied and effective. So in effective, like I said, there must be a significant and socially important level of change for the behavior. You increase your client's ability to dress themselves to the point where they can do it fully independently, would be an example of effective. Moving through get a cab, T is for technological. An intervention should be replicable by anyone who reads this intervention. For example, you are transferring a case to a different BCBA. They should be able to read every single one of your goals and understand and implement your interventions exactly the way you are implementing them at the current moment. If they're written technologically, or if they have a technological approach to the way they're written, then another BCBA should be able to come in and fully understand and implement them. I think it's important to note that I think it's still important if I think a really good technological written intervention can also have like a coach or a teacher also implement the same thing. While there might be questions asked because of the previous video where we were talking about the 4 branches of ABA, that would be practice guided by ABA instead of just ABA. When we're writing them, that's just us in that, like, I would say 3rd branch, and then the teachers and the RBTs and the coaches and the moms, they can be included in that last branch of ABA. When we're writing our interventions, we should still write them so that they can understand them as well. The A in back cage stands for applied. Changes are positive and socially significant in the person's life. Changing is meaningful. So the example here would be someone learns to dress themselves. So this one's the one that I was saying is much like effective. So let's go back through effective really quick. Effective is there must be significant and socially important level of change in the behavior, and that's where the example was you increase your child's ability to dress themselves to the point where they can do it fully independently. That would be an effective intervention. Applied is just changes are positive and socially significant to a person's life. Change is meaningful. Someone learns to dress themselves. So it sounds like it's a little bit more individualized with effective to their way of needing to learn how to dress themselves, versus applied is just that's a socially significant goal for most people, and most people need to learn how to dress themselves. I'm gonna use my task list really quick on my iPad to try to get more of a clear explanation in the difference of them. So let's see. Okay. So applied. Okay, that one. No. Let's just use this actually. I have a glossary pulled up of the definitions. So applied in the Pass the Big ABA exam definition is, I'm just gonna find it. A dimension of ABA that explains that ABA treatment must aim to improve socially significant behaviors in a real-world setting. Okay, now let's go to effective. I think you can just use search. Okay. Dimension of ABA, which explains that ABA procedures should result in a practical, socially significant improvement in a person's life. So there's improvement with effective, and applied is change has happened. Okay. So I think that the example in effective is hard because it sounds like you're at the end of it, but effective is just showing that there's been important improvement in someone's life, where applied is showing that changes are positive and socially significant in a person's life, and the change is meaningful to that person specifically. Okay. Moving on through get a cab, C is conceptually systematic. It deals with the interventions that should be consistent with behavior principles. So for example, you want to teach your client how to imitate, you design your intervention so that it is consistent with basic behavioral principles. And then I'll just quickly search that definition as well, because I feel like that one wasn't as clear. Conceptually systematic. These are all through the Pass the Big ABA exam glossary. A dimension of ABA which explains that ABA procedures must be derived from the basic principles of applied behavior analysis. So all of the interventions you're implementing, they need to come from somewhere. They need to come from this is happening because of this, and basically why would be, there's a basic principle of behavior analysis that has been proven to work before, and that's why we're using this symptom. This procedure. You can't just say that you're going to do something because it sounds good to you. You have to have a reason for it. The second A in get a cab is analytic. It doesn't have to go in order like this, by the way. It's just the way I remember it. So you can do it in whichever way is easiest for you. Analytic is a functional relation is demonstrated between what is changed in the environment and the behavior we want to change. Are we controlling the behavior? For example, your DRA intervention controls the occurrence and the non-occurrence of certain behaviors. So analytic is showing that there is a functional relation there, and your intervention is the reason for it. Your intervention is the reason for the behavior either happening or not happening, depending on what you want it to do, because you have control over that behavior. That would be analytic. The last dimension in the 7 dimensions of ABA is the B in Get a Cab. It's behavioral. Behavior must be observable and measurable. You can observe someone's writing behavior. You can then measure that behavior. So as long as you can actually physically see it and take data on it, it's considered a behavior. Something I like to remember in this dimension is the dead man's test. If a dead man can do it, it's not behavior. And that's everything for the 7 dimensions of ABA. And then next we'll be moving on to task list B.